àpòlùbọ́ 160,000 tó bá tún dé tó tóbi jù báyìí là ń ta 180 àpòlùbọ́ 40,000 50,000.
Everything they increase. It don't reach 17, 15, 16. That's not in the seller. Don't want to stand now.
In fact, the price of yam now has even put the quality aside, because the poor man now is even talking of yam, no matter how it is, for him to eat yam, even if it is getting rotten.
Tẹ́lẹ̀ tá a bá mú 5,000 dọ́jà a máa ra jọ máa tẹ́ wa lọ́rùn nísìnyí bá a bá mú 50,000 dọ́jà ní nǹkan tá a fi rà.
$86 million Nigerians live below $2 per day. This means hunger, starvation, and other forms of deprivation. This is according to Business Day, a media organization that specializes in economic and financial news. This population is estimated to increase by more than 50% by 2050. Okpeyemi Agbaje is an economist, and it helps to understand the population growth rate in relation to the current inflation rate.
The country is insecure in terms of food supply. There's no assurance of a consistent availability of food at an affordable price. There are indices that we see that suggest increasing trend towards food insecurity in Nigeria. One, inflation. Overall inflation at 16% is significant. But what's still the most significant component of that inflation at 16% is the food inflation. And if you see consistently for some months now, the rate of food inflation is higher than the overall rate of inflation. So at 17% on average. The problem with the growth rate of the Nigerian economy is that it's at best, in the last few years, at best, and many times even lower, at best equal to or many times lower than the rate of population growth.
What still remains largely unclear is what this additional population will eat. The Mile 12 Market, Lagos.
Extortion from the security agents all the way from Plateau before you get here. Apart from the motor money, you have to reserve 200,000 to 300,000 naira on settlements on the way before you get here, even though the goods they are carrying are not contraband goods. But that is the system we find ourselves into. When I talk of insecurity now, for instance, from Benue State, most of them doesn't go to their farm as a result of the problem they're having with herdsmen, farmers-herdsmen clashes, killings, and all these things. In fact, some of them will suffer, cultivate these goods. They will not be allowed to harvest it. It is not only in Benue. Most places that these yams are, even in Plateau, you may be reading the television, you will be reading the newspapers, the clashes they're having with herdsmen and all these things. I don't really know.
The problem we are getting is different. For example, Samfara, that we do bring onion based on kidnapping and other things. We cannot be able to farm as usual, because if we are only using the farm, also Sokoto, they can just come and kidnap. So we are doing it and with a vigilant something. You understand? In those days, there's nothing like call kidnapping or whatever. We do go to farm and produce a lot of onion, a lot of goods.
Ìyàn ń bọ̀ kán ṣàánú wa lọ́mọ jẹ́ kí ìyàn pa gbogbo ọmọ Nàìjíríà. Àwọn tó bá lè avoid náà avoid èlùbọ́, àwọn èèyàn jẹjẹkújẹ lókù tó ń jẹ. Ẹlòmíràn wá sọ́jà epo sí ló máa rà. Á kàn ra gbogbo ẹ̀ mọ́ra wọn, á lọ lọ wọn á lé èlùbọ́ náà ló jẹ. Nígbà tó wíwò bá ká èlùbọ́ gidi tó lè jẹ. Tá bá débẹ̀ yẹn sin epo sùkú bẹ̀. Iṣu tó ti bàjẹ́ lóríṣiríṣi, wọ́n bá ti mú 5,000 dání, wọ́n bá ti rè po su, wọ́n á kàn ra nǹkan mímu, wọ́n á lọ wá gbọ́. Wọ́n lè avoid ẹ̀ nínú àwọn. Wọ́n tẹ́lómi bá dé bí ó máa yípo ní ìwà bọ́ 15,000 45. Wọ́n máa yípo ní kí ló fẹ́ fi kún òun èlò ní sálárì. Àìmọye tó máa ń bẹ́ẹ̀gì fún nǹkan tó máa jẹ. Wọ́n á wá tọrọ, àkàndé ni wọ́n á tọrọ ni wọ́n ní ẹjọ́ ẹ ṣàfáwọn ní lílọ ẹjọ́ ebi ò ní pa yín. àwa náà ò ní lè dájú.
Clearly, the food vendors do not speak for the entire food value chain. They represent a key stop in the chain. So to dig for detail, I spoke to farmers who are the very start line of food production in Nigeria.
Hacho, yasilu haya, onege ji yasine do na ikuleke, yamme ikuleke, ikumana ebapu, shinkafa, zuwa chinwa ikumana baikundu. Na ha, mo waga, ha makwa do henya yase. Ba hinge na halu mzuwa mba haya, mbuwe semondo, hacho mbalu munga. Hinge na esilu hana na hapa do, gata wungwa we nage agwe hinkungu hana, shikasi yevsi yemi kumanyi silu evaga.
I hail from Tiote Jaha Council Ward. This is a council ward that is having a boundary at the bank of the River Benue. And this is where the herders usually take refuge. When they come, that's where they take it as their own base. My council ward, over 10 years now, I've never been in my village because there is no farming activities going on there. The people have been displaced. Many of my people are here in Naka, and some have gone to other places to find a refuge.
Like Benue State, the story is true of Plateau, Borno, Kaduna, Oyo, and a host more farming communities across the nation. Dwellers of agrarian communities feel grossly unsafe and in turn cannot, over the past few years, actively contribute to the food value chain. In Osun State, I spoke to farmers of Agudoede.
Àwọn nǹkan tó fà á tí ire oko nígboro fi wọ́n ọ̀pọ̀. Àkọ́kọ́ níbẹ̀ ò ní pé nígbà tá a ti di pé olúkálùkù náà máa lọ sílé ìwé, àgbẹ̀ ò rí ọmọ fi ṣiṣẹ́ mọ́ lóko. Àwọn àgbẹ̀ tí wọ́n sì ń ṣiṣẹ́ lóko yìí ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ ti dàgbà. Kò sí ability láti fi ṣiṣẹ́ bí ìgbà tí wọ́n wà léwe. Èyí jẹ́ àkọ́kọ́. Ní Bùsàní Adé fi kọ́ ni pé kò ságbẹ̀ mọ́ lóko. So àwọn ìrànwọ́ tí àwọn ìjọba ń ṣe bíi seedling, fertilizer, insecticide. So gbogbo àwọn ìrànwọ́ ìwọ̀nyí kò dọ́dọ̀ ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ àgbẹ̀, à ń kàn fetí gbọ́ ni. Àwọn minority nínú àgbẹ̀ ní rí kíní yìí gbà. Àwọn tí wọ́n sì rí gbà náà wọn ò rí gbà ní necessary láti lè pé káwọn máa dispose ẹ̀ sọ́dọ̀ àwọn yòókù. Olúkálùkù ń ṣe ní pé tọ̀ bá a fọkọ́ lé wèrè lọ́wọ́, ọ̀dọ̀ ara ẹ̀ ní òròkó sí.
Ọkọ́ àti àdá ẹgbẹ́ dájú àwọn ọmọ kéékèèké tí mo ṣe rà máa ń sanwó ojúmọ́ àríkàkàtà. Sẹ́rí nígbà tá a bá àwọn kẹ́míkà kan bẹ tá a máa ń rà nígbà tí a bá kọ́ tán tá a gbé tán tá a máa fi fín àwọn èpò yìí. Kẹ́míkà yẹn nírú àsìkò tá a wà ẹ̀ tá à ń tí ń rà ní 700, 3,000 là ń rà ní ìsìn. Ìgbà tá a bá yọ owó yẹn kúrò nínú èrè tá a jẹ, èrè tí ò tó nǹkan ló ń kù.
Of course, let's establish that there is a global food challenge. The world is still trying to recover from the COVID pandemic, which kind of generally affected every country of the world in terms of capacity to produce and distribute food. And then we have the unfortunate situation of Ukraine and Russia. Whereas people think that is a localized war, the impact is global. So we can say we are seeing another world war in terms of its impact, in terms of how it's affecting. But then back to Nigeria, we have a major food crisis that has been building for years in Nigeria, across the Sahel, up to the Horn of Africa. Unfortunately, Nigeria is supposed to be a leader in terms of food production, in terms of food export. Matter of fact, Nigeria is also responsible for a lot of the grain supply for the Sahel, for West Africa. However, a lot of circumstances have been, teaming up, to affect our capacity to produce. to distribute, to preserve, to process. Unfortunately, governments after another have not done enough, despite a lot of early warnings. In the last 15, 20 years, there have been quite a lot of warnings as to where we are headed.
Grain crops represent major staples for Nigerians, with rice being the most consumed among the lots of millet, sorghum, wheat, and maize. Nigeria produces only 5 million metric tons of milled rice every year, with an average annual consumption of 6.7 million metric tons, leaving a deficit of 1.7 million metric tons. In spite of border closures, 2 million metric tons find their way into the country through illegal means. Yet, there is not enough to eat. Do you remember Abakaliki rice?
We don't need to import one grain of rice into the country. We can produce enough for the country and one for export. Our production capacity now is 4.1 million metric tons. From the statistics available to us from the Federal Ministry of Trade and Investment, that's what I've quoted. And I'm still saying that we may have gone beyond that, because that was as at 2020-2021 farming season. As I speak, the statistics for the year 2001 have not arrived. And I know that our farms did better in 2001 than 2020.
Baranda is a farming settlement in Jigawa State. Here, grain crops like millets and sorghum are widely cultivated. These days, farmers are also into rice production, a venture they now actively engage in and off-season. However, to do this requires adequate irrigation, which takes quite an effort for the farmers to achieve.
Haka ko muna da mutane wanda suke haduwa suke mana inji na hannu, haka ne ake yin sa sai a rijiya sai a kafa inji wannan Honda sai ake tada shi sai ke bada ruwa irin wannan dare kaga irin ga komai yin shi to shine zaka kamar yanda alkaman ya fito haka to shi ma haka yan kafa zai fito kuma a ci gaba da amfani da shi shine in ka da wani haka kana bani ina baka misali ai mu yanzu a nan garin da ba ma noman shinkafa na rani to amma tun da bara da aka yi aka ga an samu alkhairi to yanzu shine kowa kuma ya shin madafa akan da yaya za a yi mu samu taki mu bunkasa mai shinkafa gaba duk gari yanzu nan a yau ina ma da safan nan na ga an kawo iri ana saya ana yafawa ka fahimta yanzu nan gonake na mutanen dutse shinkafan su kai bara a nan gurin ya samu ya kai buhu 400 a nan gonar mu muka aikin da ni ake yi hudu da ni ake aikin alaji ni da ni aka yanke ta da ni aka buga da ni aka komai ya dinga kasa kuma ta dutse da ita mun yi masa godiya da ya sallame mu kajen da aka yi.
After visiting a few farms in the state, we spoke to the Deputy Governor of Jigawa State, Mr. Umar Namadi, on rice production in the state.
Let me tell you, as at the time we came in, the rice, the production for annum is about 92,000 tons per annum. The production for rice, as at the time we came in. Now, as I'm telling you today, it's over 600 tons per annum. Rice. Now, if you take millet also, the millet you find that as at the time we came in is about 480,000 tons per annum. You know, you grow sorghum in a Fadama land. And Fadama land is now an area where you can grow rice also. So people now feel, okay, it's more profitable to move from the production of sorghum to the production of rice. That is why rice has increased by almost 500%.
Though there are other problems experienced by farmers here, such as lack of adequate funds and farm machinery, desertification, flooding, and other climate-related challenges may be the bigger burdens. And rice farmers in Ebonyi State are not also without their own struggles. Grace Nwadurum and Kashmir Obinna are farmers who trade at Abakaliki Rice Mill.
Come on, we're again there now. I know where cars because of fertilizer, because of chemical. I draw no, I don't gallon. I won't know because we're again dreaming. And they are just 0 charge away enough. butie na moto do ebe a or they drive motor if go the motor have change go come because motor draw onwe if draw gallon.
What we're saying is that Abakaliki rice mill here needs finance, government support to enhance this place, to bring it upper to what it is now. We are going down because we are lacking some amenities and especially capitals to bring the business to this level. Initially, during Obasanjo, we took the first position of the first milling company in West Africa. But because of government inability to work with us, or maybe lack of coming here regularly to finance us and work with us, giving us what we need, automatically we are going down because all we need is not forthcoming as we presume.
Kashmir's concerns can be substantiated by how crude the processes engaged in rice production in this settlement is. From harvesting to parboiling to the milling as well as the winnowing, even the bagging and the weighing of the rice are carried out manually.
2021, farmers were empowered with about 6.1 billion through the NISM Microfinance Bank, what they called COVID household assistance. And in the boy here, we gave assistance through NKS, through FADAMA. So that one we gave was grant, but you know, naturally whatever the federal government is doing on through CBN is loan. The 6.1 billion was as loan to farmers. But the one the state government did was grant to assist the farmers, and we gave that assistance to 1,100 and something people, because we don't have enough resources. We are coming to needs. But I think that we assist the farmers, and most of the things we do in assisting the farmers is to give them education.
Now, for instance, we have the cluster system. The cluster system of farming is a system whereby peoples were put into groups, and a piece of land is given to them by the government. Now, as I'm talking to you today, we have over 70,000 hectares of land being cultivated under this cluster system. We have about almost 3,800 clusters. Each cluster is attached with an extension worker. This extension worker helps to educate the farmers on the best practices of farm. And also the government supply inputs to these people on credit basis. Now, as of the time we came in, the production per hectare of land in Jigawa was about 2.4 tons per hectare. As I'm talking to you, it's around to the average of 6.7 tons per hectare.
In spite of claims that the nation's rice production is at an all-time high, a bag of rice sells for an average price of 30,000 naira, a cost far above the minimum wage in over 25 states of the country today. Worse still, the dwindling purchasing power of many Nigerians, conditioned by high unemployment and underemployment rates at 33 and 22.8% respectively, have further alienated the majority. But Nigeria's beloved jollof rice fast becoming luxury food, I guess the question that begs an answer is, how bad can this hunger situation go?
Well, things are likely to get worse to the extent that right now the Food and Agriculture Organization is saying about 14.5 million Nigerians will be in dire food security situation. But I think that might even be a generous number. The way it is, if you understand that even those who are not counted as being under threatened by food insecurity, are they eating nutritious food? So you have issues of malnutrition, undernutrition. And especially when you have this in children, is more dangerous. There is something called the hidden hunger. And there have been analysts who have said that perhaps where we are having people, when one man will wake up one day and steal 80 billion naira, where somebody will wake up someday and cut off the other person's head, that these are because there are hidden hunger. People did not get the appropriate, and I need the country to listen to this. at the growing up, at the formative stage of a child, there are certain nutrition that should be balanced in the growth of a child.
Malnutrition in Nigeria is of great concern. It's not Nigeria alone. Most countries in sub-Saharan Africa have nutritional malnutrition issues. But according to official reports from the different agencies with the mandate to do nutrition assessment, there is a 37% level of stunting in Nigeria, especially for children below the age of 5. Now, we know that there are variations between regions, and I would like to focus a little bit on the northeastern states of Borno, Adamawa, and Yobe. In these states, every year there are 2 assessments that are done to estimate the malnutrition levels, and currently we estimate that at least 1.7 million children who are between the age of 6 months and 59 months. So those really below the age of 5 years are acutely malnourished. Out of this 1.7 million children who are acutely malnourished in the Northeast, 0.6 million have that severe acute malnutrition, whereas the 1.1 million have moderate acute malnutrition. But we also have another category of people who are vulnerable to malnutrition. And these are pregnant women and breastfeeding mothers. The current estimates indicate that 151,000 pregnant women and breastfeeding mothers are acutely malnourished. And we know that when pregnant mothers are malnourished, then they produce very small children at birth who may need immediate admission or some form of nutrition treatment.
Our situations seem self-inflicted, as I find it a little ironic that our hungry population also wastes half of the food available, either through post-harvest losses or food wastages at the household level.
Importantly, the country also refused to develop capacity to reduce post-harvest loss, to get maximal yield from our production. When anything is in season, you find a glut, because we also do not have a distribution system, a preservation system, a storage system that helps to keep the balance of supply and demand across the year. So a lot of this happens. Governments have the responsibility to have prepared for all of this.
The World Bank states that every year, Nigeria loses and wastes 40% of total food produced.
There's a lot of things that causes loss. If rain is falling now and we don't have time to cover it, if the water touch it, it will get spoiled. If the motor delay along the way, it will get spoiled. So all those things are the losses.
You can buy the yam over there, load it, gotten on the way, motor spoiled. The motor can last some days before you can be able to even get a transloading vehicle that will bring it down. So along that process, the yam is getting problem. By the time you eventually bring it in, you see the damages may increase. So to that extent, you will not be happy because it's your money that is being rotten.
tábọ̀ lọ́sẹ̀ kan tẹ bá kó 30,000 wá lọ́sẹ̀ kan kò lè dọ̀sẹ̀ kan yẹn mọ́ yín lọ́wọ́ eléyìí nísìn ó ń bàjẹ́ ni tẹ bá rà lọ lẹ́sìn tẹ bá ta lọ́la tán ó máa bàjẹ́ bí bàjẹ́ yẹn tẹ bá lè sórí gba àwọn èèyàn níra wọn lè ṣàní ẹ dákun ta ló lérè ta ló lójú owó adé tó fẹ́ wá lọ́la báwa ẹ kó ṣàánú wa.
The solutions to ensuring a food riot doesn't break out in the country may appear daunting, but it may not be far-fetched, as the reason people are going hungry isn't just because of food shortages. Clearly, the attendant poverty, the limited power of the naira, and the weakened economy, as well as the precarious insecurity situations spread across the country. Also, the rising costs of farm inputs and orthodox farming practices are at the very base of the sweeping menace. Experts say it will take a multifaceted approach to combat hunger and avert the impending food riot.
When we were young, we used to cultivate with our parents. They have since grown. They are too old to go to the field to dig. But we are here. We have even produced and we eat, but we never go to the field. So there is a need for increasing production, and this can only be done via mechanization, because the elderly are the ones involved in farming, and they cannot do much. The population is growing, then less food is being produced. So mechanization is one of the practices that we need to adopt quickly to produce enough food. Then the use of the right type and the right quantities of fertilizer, seeds, seedlings, animal breeds, all those. And then investing in climate smart agriculture. We need to adopt practices like irrigation. When rain is too little, we need to support the crop to reach a stage where we can harvest it. Then, of course, issues like crop protection, which is prevention of pests and diseases, and so on. The government can also help by coming in and subsidizing and also controlling the price of agro inputs. Things like fertilizers, seeds, pesticides, they should never be so expensive for a common farmer. And then the government can also support local production of these agro inputs, especially fertilizers. Fertilizers is a very good resource for crop production, but it is expensive because most of it is imported. If it was locally produced, and that profit margin that we pay to the importers can be used to procure more fertilizer. But in a nutshell, also, the government should consider increasing agriculture funding. There was a declaration, I don't remember whether it's Maputo or Malabo declaration, where nations in sub-Saharan Africa agreed to increase agriculture funding to 10% of their national budgets.
With the total allocated spending on agriculture for the year 2022 at 1.78%, that's 8.22% short of the 2003 Maputo Declaration and 2014 Malabo Resolution. The idea of a food-secure nation may be a joke in the immediate, as we continue to see millions fall daily below the poverty line.
I'm telling you, there's nothing that dignifies a farmer or a citizen like producing your own food, tending to this food as it grows and harvesting it, and preparing your own meal from your own produced food. It's more dignifying than than providing food from the humanitarian organizations.